great to have you here.
I had decided I wanted to get into events.
Don't rush into anything.
Left university and pretty much went straight into it.
It's just got to happen. So do what you need to make it happen.
I've never been one to follow rules.
We've spent a lot of time together, haven't we?
Yes, we have.
Always keeping up with trends and fads.
How do you manage that, the expectations versus the reality of budgeting?
It's always insightful to get a gauge as to what their reference point is with budget.
Pre-COVID, I didn't know what Zoom was.
You know, everything is done to a higher level.
That detail Jeremy and the band and the guys will go into, by definition, makes our life easier.
There's levels and levels, and that comes in the detail. Welcome back to another episode of The Secret World Events. And joining me today is a man who is in the Premier League of kosher catering, Ben Tenenblat. Ben and his team are widely thought of as the culinary experts and specialists and creative caterers in the marketplace. And welcome to you, Ben.
Welcome.
Great to have you with me. Great to have you with me. Ben, where did kosher catering start for you?
Well, so back in the day, university, many years ago, I was Birmingham University and was asked to look after the JSOC balls and loved the rush. It was fantastic. And then...
Hold on a second. So you started catering JSOC balls because you could cook or because... No,
nothing
just
to do with the
organise?
food. It was more the management side. Other caterers were involved at the time. Studied graphic design and photography.
Oh, that's interesting. More my world.
Yeah. Nothing to do with food. Creative. And yeah, just loved the rush from it and left university and pretty much went straight into it.
So how long have you been sort of a kosher caterer? How long have you had your licence?
So I've been, I would say it's over 20 years.
20 years?
Yeah.
Wow.
20 years.
What prompted you to be, can I ask, kosher
Sure.
as opposed to a caterer?
I think it's a smaller market. I think there was definitely a need for change. The perception of kosher food at the time was very meat and two veg. There was not much creativity around.
Yeah.
I like to have thought myself as being creative, and I wanted to apply it to food. And stuck to the kosher market. It was just a smaller market to be in, and knew I could tackle it.
Fantastic.
Rather than being a small fish in a bigger pond.
What is it you most love about being, a caterer? Because I think it comes with big, big pressure.
Yeah, the pressure is massive. I just love seeing it from meeting the client at the initial stage and then become part of their journey. So it's going from paper, seeing it to fruition on an event. Yeah. Really. That's the big...
Now, you sort of, if I was looking at this like as a horse race, for me, a number of years ago, you just sort of came up on the outside. I think we saw the disappearance of Food Story, who were very much sort of, vying for that sort of top spot, as it were, in the kosher catering world. Sadly, they fell along the wayside. And then all of a sudden, on the outside rail, came Ben Tenenblat and team.
Yeah, look, so we opened this company in 2013. I worked for another caterer for a good 8 years before that. And Food Story, as mentioned, they opened at pretty much exactly the same time.
Yeah.
So we were both new kids on the block. But when I opened the company, I took the view that I wasn't going to be one of those caterers that go under. So we took it very slowly, didn't want to conquer the market. We wanted to do what we could achieve. So we just got on and did what we did well and did best, and didn't rush into it. And just the whole collapse of Food Story kind of just then let us just fly.
Yeah.
At that point, it happened at a bad time just before COVID kicked in. We were at our peak in 2020. We were really mad busy.
Yeah.
Then COVID kicked in, Food Story disappeared, but it's...
Now, this isn't a Jewish podcast. This is
Sure.
The Secret World of Events, not the Secret World of Jewish Events. And perhaps for those listening on the podcast or watching us on YouTube, can you explain, what kosher means in terms of kosher catering? Maybe some of the sort of nuances and the rules.
Sure. So there's kosher and then there's supervised kosher. So we as a company, we're supervised. We're supervised by the London Bet Din, which means... we as a company, we cater, but then we cater under the rules of the London Bet Din, and we're supervised by them, and strict rules. But then you've also got kosher style catering, which is not supervised, but kosher.
So that would be a non-kosher caterer using kosher meats.
Kosher meats, correct.
Yeah.
And just sticking to the
principal guidelines
of kosher.
of having a meat that is kosher.
Correct.
From a kosher butcher.
Absolutely.
As it were.
So, yeah, we can't do anything without the Bet Din's
say
approval.
So.
Yeah.
Okay. And how does it actually, in real terms, implement? You actually have somebody with you on your jobs, don't you? And they're called a shomer.
Shomer.
And what's the role of the shomer?
So he is there to really supervise us as a company and making sure that we're sticking to the guidelines. So we don't open our premises without a shomer there. We can't cook. If we're cooking, there's a shomer there from start to finish.
And there's other hindrances in real terms. When I say real terms, we're in the middle of winter currently, and it gets dark very early. So for you on a Saturday party, it changes everything in terms of how you can do things, doesn't it?
Absolutely. So we can't do anything until Shabbat goes out on the Saturday, which we're doing a day's work within an hour. So the labour load, the pressure of getting a front of house room sorted, it's high.
It's very
definitely high. But it's also on the Friday. Our day ends around 1:00 on a Friday. We have to be done, packed off.
Because you have to close before the Sabbath
Shabbat
comes in, before Shabbat comes in.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so there's just pressure all around.
A lot of pressure. So our weekend really starts on a Thursday.
I have admired caterers for a very, very long time because it crosses my world in so many different ways. Obviously, on every job we do, there's pretty much catering. We may obviously not get fed the food the guests get, but I see you stacking up and delivering meals from 100 people up to 1,000 people.
Yep.
How on earth do you do that? How do you deliver 1,000 hot meals of your quality for a big evening?
It's having a fantastic team behind me. So got a great ops team, fantastic team of chefs who know what they're doing.
I'm going to say you're serving a beef dish. There's 1,000 people in the great room. And you've got to get all those. How are they cooked? Is somebody back there?
We've invested heavily in sous videing. So that's poaching meat and then finishing it off in a pan. And it guarantees a perfect product rather than the conventional way of cooking a piece of beef in the oven. Guest speaker goes over 5 minutes too long. Your beef is going to be dry and overcooked. So we invested heavily at the beginning in sous videing, which gives us that flexibility of producing hot, good quality foods and sending it out fast.
You're very widely well known for being unbelievably creative as well. I mean, I think that the fact that there's people like you around, and we've mentioned Food Story as well, who I thought were incredibly creative and did a great job, which obviously pushes on all the other suppliers in the kosher world. Where does that creativity come from for you in terms of how do you make things different?
Yeah, we just try to be different. We're always looking, between me and my team, the chefs especially, we're out there looking what the wider community are doing in terms of producing food. We're pushing the boundaries with the Bet Din and making sure products are approved. It's just having fun. It's keeping it safe, because at the end of the day, we've got to get the product out of a kitchen and getting it fast. But it's just having fun with it.
Let's take a look at some of these images because I asked you to send me through a sort of a deck of images that we can talk through. This was obviously a wedding Savoy. You did at the Savoy. I think these images came from Blake, didn't they?
They did.
Yeah, our friend Blake Ezra, who seems to be popping up a lot in our podcast without actually being on the show himself. I mean, when I think of you, and this image for me, actually, I've seen this because I think it's a job I was on as well.
Great image.
It's a fantastic image. But someone has to think of that.
Yeah.
Just talk me through as we go through some of these shots.
I was very late to social media, just to get my head around it. But we came across a product called Flavor Blaster. They came out with it's almost a vape, but as a gun. And it was for the food market. So we could smoke anything rather than their old ways of smoking through burning chips.
Yeah.
We're now doing it through a vape gun. So, and then they took it even further. They got a sugar syrup gum, which you dip your vape gun in to create a bubble over your cocktail.
So that's actually it's not a block of ice on top. That's a bubble, isn't it?
That's a bubble infused with a flavoured.
And in terms of presentation of food, historically, and I'm going to go back to when I got bar mitzvahed, and I think maybe my mum catered, but kosher food never really looked great.
No.
It's until I feel like the creative caterers have turned up on the scene in relative recent years, because we're all kicking on a bit now. Kosher food has definitely improved and does look world class across the board, because I think you've all improved. People that lead the way like yourselves, and then everybody down the chain has to improve, because otherwise
got to keep up.
They've got to keep up or go bust.
Yeah.
Just talk to me about sort of, the way you think about this in the presentation.
The first thing we come up with is how quickly can we get it out, how many moves on a plate, and how quickly we can get it out of the kitchens, and then the presentation comes out.
That's incredible. I never thought about that.
Yeah.
You need to work out the logistics of the food.
So our head chef, John, he's been in this longer than I have, but he times it down to the second, and we work out how many chefs, how many waiting staff we're going to need, how many moves on the pass is going to take, how long service.
So explain that, because I've seen this. I've been back of house when caterers are the moves on the pass, the plate moving down the chain.
Yep.
And
so you've
essentially,
got chefs on one side, waiting staff on the other. The waiting staff are holding the plates, and each chef is allocated to a move on the plate. So depending on how many moves on the plate is subject to how many.
yeah.
how
So
many
even have a
chefs.
look at this. Okay. For me, this is chicken.
Yep.
Okay.
Poussin.
Okay,
Half a
poussin. Okay,
Yep.
but I look at the colours. I look at the detail, the style, where everything is. Is that something that's planned out like a picture?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all planned out. We've got planning meetings in the office, tastings, concept, and then execution.
This is a job we did with you. This was a fun one.
That was a
This
great
was with Aaron from White Paper,
White
wasn't
paper.
it?
Yeah.
This was
Park
an
Royal
essence.
Studios.
Yeah, Park Royal was an essence of Charlie in the Chocolate Factory. And there's just some sort of little room shots. Let's get to your food shots, which are coming through. This is a gorgeous party. Even down to the drinks and the way it's presented on the bar is down to you, isn't it? Because you run the bars
So
as
we
well.
look after all food and beverage.
So it's a bit of theatre.
Yes.
And when you are working with a planner and the planner says, right, this is what we're doing, how do we work together to ensure the food is on point? Is that something you're brought into?
Yeah, absolutely. So someone at Aron, extremely creative, will sit down and have a creative meeting. We need to gather a bigger picture, and then we can apply that to the plate. So, yeah.
And in terms of where that comes down to, I mean, this is another sort of iconic, I think you were definitely leading the way with this now.
Freak shake.
Now very
Everyone's on it.
very copied
Yeah.
freak shake, which looks absolutely incredible. I do remember the party when that was brought out. There's a whole chain of them coming forward. Creating fantastic world-class desserts is not easy when it comes to being kosher, in my mind.
No.
How much of a hindrance is that?
Back in the day, it was extremely tough when we first started out. But given the way the world's going with the whole veganism, a lot of allergies, coconut milk, almond milk, there's so much out there now that has enhanced us being able to come out with some fantastic desserts.
So is that why my chocolate dessert now tastes like a chocolate dessert instead of basically
you can get
dried
some
flakes?
Yeah, you can get some fantastic dairy alternatives, from creams down to butter.
So the world has
The
basically
chocolate as well
has fallen into your hands as a kosher caterer.
Yeah.
Amazing. What's competition like in the kosher catering world? I mean, you mentioned before, along the way, caterers do go. It's quite actually well known, isn't it? That plenty of caterers go bust, seem to pop up back again and sort of keep going. But how, since you've been running your business, how do you manage that? How do you manage the sort of the pitfalls of the catering world?
It's just managing what you can achieve, and don't run too fast. Definitely got to walk before you can run. And I think that I work with a caterer that unfortunately went under and popped back up. And I just said it's definitely something that we're not wanting to do. So rather than saying we're doing 120 jobs a year, I'd rather do 50 good jobs a year.
Absolutely.
And have a life and give a good product.
But doesn't credibility go with that when people go
Absolutely.
under? Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that's got to be a real sting in the tail. When you first meet with a client, how easy is it to decide on menus?
So the early stages, we don't get involved with the menus. that food changes like the wind, weather, fashion. It's always changing. Someone that's booking us a year out, the amount of changes or the amount of concept changes they go through is I can't count. So we just fix a package at the outset, and then we only talk food, I would say, about 3-4 months out of the wedding.
So that's interesting. It's a question that, and I don't want you to be uncomfortable with questions,
Sure.
Absolutely, but it's like it's a laughing joke. Why is kosher food so expensive? I can go to a world-class restaurant and I can pay, 120 or 130, 150 pounds a head, and I go to a wedding and I'm being served food at, I don't know. I don't even know what a kosher meal costs at the top level. Where do they start from?
We get asked this question a lot.
Sure.
But then I just turn around to the client. If you go to a top-class restaurant and ask them to shut down the restaurant for the night and cater for yourself, it will cost you more than a kosher wedding.
Really?
That's what it's going to come down to, yeah. The restaurants are catering for a number of people, not specifically for you. You're contracting us to open our kitchens, send our vans out, send the chefs, the waiting staff, and cook for you personally at a venue. That is not ours.
Sure. And where does kosher pricing at your level sort of start from now? What can people expect? Is it something we can talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. We're open. Our costs are open. We are around the 165 a person plus additional extras.
Yeah, whatever they may be. And
yeah,
that's
where the client wants to take
absolutely.
it.
Is that like a pick and mix of things you can add on? Or?
Yeah, look, if they want to upgrade their wines, they want to upgrade their linens, but that's where it kind of falls in play. And again, depends on the number of guests, plays a massive factor on how we shoot out our price per person.
And of course, you don't just cover, the very large events. You may do a small scale dinner party.
Yeah,
you may do a very small
two.
Friday night. So how many jobs on a sort of average week are you sort of putting out?
We're putting on average around 3 to 4 a week.
I mean, that in itself is incredible, because the planning and infrastructure around that is, or the logistics.
Yeah, got a great ops manager who literally takes care of all of it, but she's brilliant.
So is the idea then you come in, a year out and you say, okay, this is where I am budget-wise, this is what it's going to cost you, I'll lay out all the options, and then sort of 4 months to go, you're deciding on perhaps what the foods may be because it falls within that category?
So we're always changing our menus just seasonally. It's just we're trying to keep up with what's happening. So our menus are going to definitely be different 3 months out from a wedding than booking us a year in advance.
And of all of your years of having your own kosher catering company, is there one meal for you that's been your sort of standout favourite? Is there one dish you've served?
I mean, they're all great, but I mean, our beef is just exceptional. However we serve it, it's the sides are the sides, but the beef is the shining star of the plate.
And is that something that's like your, let's call it, leading seller as well?
Yeah. So I would say 90% of our jobs are the rib of beef.
Are there any other sort of major restrictions to kosher that you think, if only we could get around, if only there was a way around that? Are you said earlier, trying to get the Beth Din to sort of maybe give permission for certain things. Is that a constant challenge?
It was a big challenge, but I would say over the last 10 years, they've got a lot better. The Beth Din, they've got to keep up with the times as well. There are a lot of products out there that just people don't know about, that when you actually look into, there's nothing wrong with them. They're kosher.
They're kosher. They've just got to be looked into.
They've just got to be looked into. It takes time, but for us to come out with some of our desserts, I mean, I think we were one of the first to come out with molecular desserts, I would say a good 8 years ago.
What's molecular desserts?
It's chemical reactions with food. We created like a little sphere, Bloody Mary sphere, but no one had done it kosher. So it's a little pop in your mouth, sweet, but when it hits your tongue, it pops into a cocktail, into your mouth. But to get the chemicals past...
I'm wondering how 8 years later I've never tried this. Probably because I'm working. Yeah. Probably because I'm working.
It doesn't hit the Outmess room.
No, it doesn't hit the Outmess room. That's pretty fantastic.
But yeah, to get the Beth Din, I mean, it was a long battle, but they were up for it. They looked into it.
Now, currently across the globe, there's definitely an economic crisis going on. And I know I've certainly seen it across my business in terms of increased costs. But you've got an exceptional sort of set of circumstances where you've obviously got food costs that have gone up, wages and staffing for casual staff
Yep.
have obviously shot through the roof. How do you work with it? I mean, what sort of increases are you seeing, and what does that mean for your end customer?
We're getting increased by the week at the moment from all our suppliers. So for us to fix a price so far out at the moment is proving difficult. We're having to put clauses into our contract that there's got to be some sort of flexibility. We don't want to be in a position in years out that we're just struggling to achieve the figures, and then we're going to have to cut a corner somewhere. We just won't go into a job cutting a corner. It's hard. We're seeing big increases.
So I know that across my world, we don't have any freelancers, so our costs are our costs.
Yep.
But I know certainly across other industries, just having casual staff up 20 to 30% since the end of COVID,
Yeah.
which means your costs go up. What does that mean to the end user?
It's just their price per person. It's just going to go up.
Yeah.
That's what it's going to come
And
down
there's no
to.
pulling back on this.
There's no pulling back. Labour, a piece of chicken's a piece of chicken, whether I'm doing it or one of my competitors are doing it. It's the quality, the staffing ratios. If we don't have the labour to get the chicken out of the kitchen, the product's not great.
Yeah.
So we just won't go into a job cutting our labour, and that's where the main cost is.
So, like food costs have gone up.
Food costs
I
have
think
gone
generally
up.
sort of like 18, 19%. I was reading an article the other day.
Food costs have gone up with just generally in the UK, but then the war hasn't helped in the Ukraine. Just the feed for chicken came from the Ukraine, so now they've got to get it from the English market. It's just rocketed.
One of the questions I've been asking a lot of my guests on the podcast is called event anxiety. And is that something that you recognise? Is that something that happens for you prior to an event? Do you get the sort of
I don't
moment?
sleep.
You don't sleep?
I don't sleep. It's just me. I think if I don't worry or if I'm not nervous, then something's wrong. Like, I'd rather be nervous, I'd be on it, and the product is flawless. I mean, once main course is out, then I'm a little bit more relaxed.
Is that the moment?
Yeah, depending on you got a chocolate fondant for your dessert, you've still got risk there.
Yeah.
But main course is when I'm on edge.
And can I ask you also, we know behind the scenes, sometimes, our job is perhaps to make sure that everything is faultless front of house. But how do you cope at the back end when things, because they obviously can go wrong, and they do regularly.
They do.
How do you guys cope with that?
I'm not a stressed out person, and you'll never see me stressed. I just took the view, you start stressing, everyone else stresses around you, and then people back into a corner, and then you find yourself into bigger problems. So it's just dealing with the problem. There's always going to be a solution. And like I said before, my team it's taken me a long time to get my team, and
then retaining them.
But I trust them to do a job.
Just flicking back to some of your images again. Is creativity sort of central to you in terms of food delivery? Because everybody can put food on a plate. Is that something you pride yourself on?
Yeah, so we like to always be different and one step ahead, but it's moving. With our main courses, we always keep it as safe as we can. But with canapes, food stations are extremely creative on starters and desserts. You can get a little bit more creative.
What's that dish there? The colours on that are just
sea
popping.
bass, saffron potatoes. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Absolutely. And here you go. Here's another
Chocolate
really,
delice.
if you saw that on any plate in any
Popcorn.
fine dining restaurant. And in terms of the competition out there, I know in my world, people come to us specifically because they know the level we're at, and probably they're quite aware of sort of the budgets we are as well. In your world, there's plenty of competition, and I feel like that's probably one of the biggest chunks of change people are going to spend is on food. So it's either where they can make a significant saving, but how does that work when you're sort of pricing up against someone?
I think by us having a good, clean track record helps people. Like you said, they're spending a lot of money with us, and knowing the fact that our accounts are good, we're going in the right direction, we're a solid company by investing their money into us that far out, it is definitely a big help. Our pricing is competitive. We are at the high end. At the high end market, there is competition, not a huge amount of competition. I'd say in the middle market, there's
More competition.
There's a lot more to compete.
And was
with.
that a conscious decision for you When you started out, that's where you wanted to be.
Yeah, the view was if you start low, there's no way you're going to ever get to the high end. It's just one day you can't be charging £50 a head. 2 weeks later, you're charging 200 quid a head.
Yeah.
It's just, there's no justification for it. So we went in high. It was slow, but it was slow. We had the luxury of me leaving the other caterer, and the calendar came over to me at the time, so we did get a good head start.
So you had a running start.
We had a running start. I mean, our first job, big charity, 2 weeks after opening the company, was 1,300 at the Great Room. Didn't own a fork at the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
No wonder you have sleepless nights.
Yeah. It was great. It was an amazing challenge.
Yeah.
Look, you've got to start in the deep end, get chucked in there.
Sure. And when it comes to things like, let's say, charities, I mean, the sort of market for charity and charity dinners is very, very big. Do you find that there's loyalty amongst the clients? Do they stick with you, or do they just shop around? Is it a pricing thing?
It's definitely a price. At the end of the day, they've got to make as much money for charity. But with our charities and with our private events, we pride ourselves on becoming part of the journey with them or part of their family. So with all our charities, we get heavily involved. We as a company raise money. We do all their fundraising with them as well. We're not just there to get some food out to their donors. So there is that loyalty, and we give that loyalty back to them.
One of the big differentiators for me, Ben, for you, is that whereas other caterers seem to be planning parties or have planning arms or think they can do production, you stick to food pretty much, don't you?
Pretty much.
That's a conscious decision?
Yeah, look, we want to focus on what we do best. It's great to organise the whole event, but I think you just take your eye off the ball. The clients, at the end of the day, is contracting us to get the food out and not having to worry about has the right arrangement gone on the right table and is the bedroom correct for the bride and groom. We do offer it when the client doesn't want to go down that route, but it's not something we would look at selling yet. May change.
Yet. Okay.
May change.
Always room, always room.
Absolutely.
Ben, as part of each and every episode, we have questions that have come in from Instagram, and I'm going to run you through some of these questions that have been directly aimed, obviously, at Kosher Catering. As a kosher caterer, is there a food you would love to serve that you simply cannot?
Lobster. It just looks fantastic on the plate.
Yeah.
The way it's presented in the non-Jewish world, it just looks very appetizing.
So as a kosher caterer, are we saying then that even though you're not serving the food, you yourself personally cannot tuck into a lobster?
Absolutely. So part of the criteria to become supervised, you've got an option to have a kosherist director that looks after the kosher license of the company, which means the owner of the company can go off and tuck into a lobster. But I don't. I hold my own license, and
so there's no Tottenham or Arsenal for you on a Saturday?
No.
Okay,
no, only Sunday.
Only on a Sunday game, and there's definitely no lobster and prawns for you, young man. Next question up. What's your favourite meal to serve at a summer wedding?
Lovely smoked salmon starter, just classic. Gosh, you put me on the spot here.
Yeah, sorry. That's
wow.
That's the point. I'm gonna guess it's going to be a fish.
Yeah, we've also found our clients are going for a more balanced menu, especially summertime. Just because they've gone kosher doesn't necessarily mean they've gone with meat. So, yeah, lovely crispy sea bass as a main course.
Okay, let's have a look at the next one. Are there varying degrees of kosher according to different supervision?
Yes, but I think we'll need another
whole episode just for that. I mean, just briefly, what does that mean? There's just different levels of... we discussed it briefly.
You've got different supervision. So you've got London Bet Din, which is affiliated to the United Synagogue community.
Okay, so that's the Premier League of observation.
Yeah, it depends who's going for it. But
right,
yes, in the eyes of the United Synagogue, that's, I would say, the mainstream supervision. And then you've got the Sephardi Kashrus Federation and Kadassia.
Oh, okay.
But in terms of the levels,
and then going down from that, you have not kosher,
you've
but
got
kosher
Mazorti,
meat.
and then there are other more people trust in the person rather than actually be under a kosher supervision.
You're absolutely right. It's for a whole
I
other
mean,
podcast.
it's a lot
and
of politics and
1977. That's a great question, but it's a rabbit hole we just have no time to go down today. Next question from Coslogs. Do you make food for the exact numbers or typically add a buffer?
So plated meals, we can gauge how much we're making. So if you've got 300 guests, we'd most probably make about 320 plates, plus your vegetarians, plus your other diets that we get asked for. So it's not exact to the number that we're asking for.
Could be, could it? I mean, just in case.
There's always, the tray falls out of the oven, falls on the floor, we're always going to have backup.
You don't reply the 2 second rule?
No.
I'm just joking.
3
seconds. Last question from Missy G12. What's the average price for a kosher meal for a bar mitzvah?
So, as mentioned before, we're going out at around the 165 a person.
And would you say for you that's the sort of average price? I mean, that's the starting price.
That's the starting price.
We say pretty much most people sort of keep to that sort of level.
Yeah, again, like we said before, it's where the client wants to take it. There's a lot of add-ons that they can add on, but our basic package, I hate using the word basic, but you get a lot for your money. You do get a lot for your money.
Yeah. So included in that, you've obviously got your alcohol, you've got your
all
reception
your
bar,
included,
canapes,
wines, waters, china, linen, good linen, decent glassware. It's all included. Waiting staff, everything to do the job is included.
I guess if clients had ever had to see the spreadsheet breakdown, it'd probably be quite a deep list, wouldn't it?
Definitely.
Of things that are always involved.
It's a lot of suppliers for one job.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes.
For you, is there a favourite sort of type of event? Do you prefer weddings to bar mitzvahs? Do you prefer corporate to charity?
Definitely prefer a wedding. I just love, weddings. Weddings are great, but bar mitzvahs, we love the creativity to it.
Yeah. What is it about the weddings then you prefer?
We're on our toes. I mean, we're always busy. We're busy all day, and we don't like just sitting around.
You obviously thrive on that pressure.
Yeah, we like the pressure. It's always nice to have a relaxed setup, but once the event happens.
On events, I'm regularly have someone whispering in my ear saying something like, Gavin, we're running 20 minutes behind, but the caterer needs to get the food out, so we're going to cut a dance set short here. How do you manage? I mean, you are timing food to perfection. But sometimes the events don't run to perfection. They don't run to a timetable. How do you cope with that side of things and the pressure?
I mean, the key on an event is communication.
Yep.
It's our team, our floor managers, liaising with the chefs, the MC, Toastmaster, band. On a wedding, I would say majority of the time, there's a wedding plan or a decent MC, and you just got to stay in communication. I mean, we did a wedding summer just gone. We ended up serving the main course, I think it was, before the host had even done his welcome speech. It was running that far behind.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That just, sometimes you can have poor management.
Yeah.
But the food
has to be on point.
Come out. The food's got to come out.
The
300 guests don't know what's happening. They're just going to assume the caterers cocked it up.
Is there one sort of rule that, you live by in business?
Just being transparent with the clients, with my staff, with everyone, and we just want to have an open conversation. Anyone's got issues, they can come and have a conversation with me. I want that not relaxed, but more chilled out environment rather than a stiff.
So trust is very, very key, isn't it,
Absolutely.
in your side of things, especially with the reputation that sadly does go with the catering side of the world. People, over the years have sort of, popped up, gone and come back, and, you have to sort of rebuild yourself. But as long as you stay away from all that.
Trying to stay away from that.
Yeah.
I'm doing a good job so far. But it's trust, and it's... Look, my clients get my mobile number. They get the manager's mobile number. We're there for them. It's stressful, especially on a wedding.
And in terms of sort of design, once again, of the food, is that led by the chefs? Is that led by you creatively?
The chefs, up until a certain point, we push the boundaries from the office side, but the chefs bring it back to reality.
Of what's doable.
It's... Like at a restaurant, it's great making one dish and serving it for one person. You can get extremely creative, but when you're trying to push out 200-300 of the same dish at the same time.
Pressure for you, yeah, must become on. You sit down. I've been to many food tastings, and I sit down for a tasting with clients, or as a client myself, and there is 12 of us, and you serve 12 amazingly incredible meals. But those same 12 incredible meals have to come out for the 300 people at the party.
We won't put anything down at a tasting that we can't achieve en masse. Anyone can cook for 6 to 12 people. I mean, you don't need to come in for a tasting. It's reality. We're very open. Oh, look, we got clients telling us how to do our own job. But we do it for Friday night dinner. Why can't you do it for 200-300 people?
Ben, that's not exclusive to you. We have people tell us how to film.
Yeah. So, but look, we rein them back in, and we will never get it to a point where I told you so. Yeah. Because the client, the 300 guests don't know what's happened behind closed doors. They don't know these conversations.
Ben, it's been fantastic having you in as a guest today. Thank you so much for sharing your insights on the kosher world. Continued success to you. If you've enjoyed today's podcast, The Secret World of Events, please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. And also, please do leave comments below so we can shape future shows. And we'll see you on the next one. Great to have you here.
I had decided I wanted to get into events.
Don't rush into anything.
Left university and pretty much went straight into it.
It's just got to happen. So do what you need to make it happen.
I've never been one to follow rules.
We've spent a lot of time together, haven't we?
Yes, we have.
Always keeping up with trends and fads.
How do you manage that, the expectations versus the reality of budgeting?
It's always insightful to gauge as to what their reference point is with budget.
Pre-COVID, I didn't know what Zoom was.
Everything is done to a higher level.
That detail Jeremy and the band and the guys will go into, by definition, makes our life easier.
There's levels and levels, and that comes in the detail.